Okay. Did you give him any advice?
No, of course not. He wouldn't take it from me, I don't think, at that age. No, but I was interested to hear how he got.
Prince Louie had always been full of laughter, the cheeky little prince who could light up any room. Yet recently the sparkle in his eyes had begun to fade. He had stopped smiling, refused meals, and abandoned his usual mischief. Changes William first noticed after Catherine's illness. Even after her recovery, Louis remained unusually quiet, and when he passed out one morning, a strange fear gripped his parents. Could it be another hidden illness? Was he hiding a deeper fear, or was something more heartbreaking unfolding behind those young eyes? Once, the morning sunshine would pour through the tall windows of Adelaide Cottage as 6-year-old Louis raced down the hallway, his laughter echoing off the ancient walls. He had already earned a special reputation within the royal family as the child who could dissolve even the most serious moments into giggles, his sparkling eyes and mischievous grin softening the sternest of faces. During breakfast on a particular morning, he had climbed onto his chair and declared with absolute confidence that he would become a dinosaur expert when he grew up. His older brother George rolled his eyes, while Princess Charlotte tried to hide her smile behind her juice glass, and their mother reached over to ruffle his hair, whispering something that made him beam with pride. These ordinary moments, the gentle laughter, playful conversations, and affectionate gestures filled their home with warmth and wove the fabric of their family life. The palace staff adored him completely. Kitchen workers often sneaked extra biscuits into his lunchbox, knowing his genuine "thank you so much" could brighten their entire day, and gardeners on the grounds would look up to watch his joyful antics, secretly smiling at the boy whose presence made every corner of the palace feel alive. Louis could often be found wandering the palace gardens, watching with fascination and asking endless questions about every flower and insect he spotted. One elderly gardener later remembered the young prince carefully picking a dandelion and presenting it as though it were the rarest treasure. "This is for you because you work so hard," Louis had said with complete sincerity. His natural charm extended beyond the palace walls during public appearances. In one carriage procession, he waved so enthusiastically that his hand became a blur, delighting the crowds, and at another event, he had stuck his tongue out playfully, earning gentle correction from his mother, while capturing hearts with his unfiltered spontaneity. Unlike children raised to constant formality, Louis possessed an authentic spirit that refused to be completely contained by protocol. His relationships with his siblings revealed yet another side of his personality. Charlotte discovered he was an excellent partner for imaginative games, throwing himself into roles from knight to patient with complete dedication, while George, though sometimes exasperated by his younger brother's energy, secretly enjoyed teaching him football, marveling at Louis's fierce concentration and determination to master every skill. Catherine often spoke of how Louis brought unexpected joy into difficult moments. When schedules became overwhelming, his sudden appearance in her office, climbing onto her lap uninvited, and asking to feed the ducks reminded her of what truly mattered. William shared his own special bond with his youngest son, enjoying evening routines of rough-and-tumble play that left them both breathless with laughter, followed by quieter moments together exploring books about animals and adventures, with Louis's endless questions from why elephants have long noses to whether dragons could be friendly, reminding his father of the innocence worth protecting. Even the household staff exchanged knowing glances when Louis appeared, anticipating whatever delightful chaos might follow, charmed by a boy whose energy, curiosity, and warmth left an indelible mark on everyone around him. Louis's boundless energy and imagination had long delighted everyone around him. He once convinced a visiting dignitary to participate in an impromptu race across the garden, and on another occasion had organized all his stuffed animals into what he called a very important meeting, inviting his grandfather as a special guest. These moments of pure childhood magic made him beloved, and nobody could have imagined that such brightness would soon face shadows beyond anything a child should endure. The first signs of change appeared during late winter, though no one could pinpoint exactly when. Louis stopped racing through the hallways with his usual abandon, and the echoes of laughter that once bounced off the walls grew quieter, then disappeared entirely. Catherine first noticed during breakfast one grey morning, when Louis barely touched his favourite pancakes, pushing them around his plate with distant eyes. William watched across the table, concern growing as the boy who normally chatted endlessly about his dreams and plans now sat in silence, staring at nothing in particular. "Lise, darling, are you feeling all right?" Catherine asked gently, reaching across to touch his forehead. He nodded without meeting her eyes and mumbled something about not being hungry. They exchanged a worried glance, though neither voiced the fear creeping into their thoughts. The changes came gradually, like seasons shifting without announcement. Charlotte tried to draw her little brother into their favorite games, setting up elaborate scenarios with his beloved toys arranged perfectly. "Come on, Louie. You have to be the dragon this time," she insisted, tugging at his sleeve, but he looked at the toys with a confused expression, as though he had forgotten how to play. "Maybe later," he whispered, curling up on the window seat instead. George attempted his own approach, bringing out the football to demonstrate new tricks. "Watch this, Louis. I can teach you," he called, hoping to spark some of the determination his brother had always shown. But Louis simply shook his head and walked back inside, leaving George standing alone in the garden, ball at his feet, unable to understand what had changed. William attributed these transformations to the enormous weight pressing down on their family. Catherine's cancer diagnosis had altered the rhythms of their home, but even that explanation did little to soothe the unease settling over them all. Catherine's cancer diagnosis had shattered their world, and William assumed his sensitive youngest child was simply struggling to process such frightening news. "He is just worried about his mother," William explained to concerned staff who noted Lewis's unusual quietness. "He needs time to adjust to everything happening around us." It seemed a reasonable explanation given the circumstances, yet mealtimes became particularly troubling. The boy who once asked for second helpings now barely touched half of his plate, despite the cook preparing his favorite dishes. The young prince's appetite dwindled, and clothes hung looser on his small frame, prompting whispered concerns among palace staff. The gardener who once received dandelion gifts now tended flower beds alone, while housekeepers found Louis sitting motionless in corners, staring at walls with unreadable expressions. One maid later recalled finding him standing perfectly still in the library, tears silently streaming down his cheeks. "Are you hurt, Your Highness?" she asked, alarmed, but he merely wiped his face and walked away. Catherine held Lizzie close during bedtime routines, stroking his hair and singing lullabies as she had since infancy, yet he felt rigid against her, lacking the relaxed warmth of a contented child. "Tell Mommy what is bothering you," she whispered. "Everything is fine," he replied automatically, in a voice that carried no conviction. Outside the bedroom door, William listened and felt cold fear settle in his chest. This was more than sadness or stress. Something had stolen the light from his son's eyes, and he could not identify the monster lurking behind the change. Spring arrived with its promising warmth, painting the gardens in brilliant colors that should have lifted every heart, and Catherine, grateful beyond words for her recovery, watched the blooms from the window. Doctors assured her the worst had passed, yet one shadow refused to lift. Louis remained trapped in his quiet world, unreachable. Despite all their efforts, Charlotte organized a special tea party in the garden, arranging everything exactly as Louis used to enjoy it, his favorite stuffed animals in careful positions, tiny cups filled with pretend tea, and biscuit crumbs she called magical cookies. "Louis, please come," she begged at his bedroom door, eyes full of hope. "Everyone is waiting for you, and the dragon said he misses you terribly." Louis simply turned over in his bed, facing the wall, while Charlotte stood helplessly, unable to understand why her brother would not return to her. George tried every tactic he could think of to reach him, appealing to the competitive spirit that once burned brightly in Louis. He challenged him to races across the lawn, offered to let him win at cards, even suggested building the biggest fort ever in their playroom, hoping to spark some excitement. Louis, however, only looked at him with tired eyes and quietly refused, leaving George with a hollow ache in his chest. William spent hours on the floor of Louis's room, attempting casual conversations to coax some explanation, even recalling past joys like the day at the zoo when Louis had been fascinated by elephants. But all he received was silence and absent gestures. Catherine approached with gentle persistence, inviting Louis to help with small tasks around the house, like choosing flowers for the dining table. Louis followed her to the garden but stood motionless, refusing her touch even as tears welled in his eyes. Nights became unbearable. Louis's sleep was restless, plagued by dreams that left him crying out, and though William or Catherine rushed to comfort him, he could not recall the fear that haunted him. These episodes increased in frequency, stealing the family's rest and leaving William and Catherine awake at night, whispering about the unnerving truth they both feared. This was not ordinary sadness, but something deeper and invisible consuming their son. Despite their experience facing cancer together, this struggle felt impossible to fight, and even the household staff noticed worrying changes. Louis no longer responded to jokes or kind words. His appetite remained poor, and the once vibrant household now moved quietly around him, aware of the unnatural silence where joy had once lived. George found Charlotte crying in the hallway, a reflection of the helplessness that gripped them all. That's the afternoon. "He does not want to play with me anymore," Charlotte sobbed. "Does Louis not love us now?" George wrapped his arms around his sister, unable to offer answers, both feeling abandoned by the brother who had once been their constant companion. But the sense of helplessness would soon turn into panic. On a cold, grey Tuesday morning, Catherine entered Louis's bedroom to wake him for breakfast and immediately sensed something was terribly wrong. His small body lay curled beneath the blankets, shivering despite the warmth, his forehead burning to the touch. "William," she called, her voice trembling. Within seconds, William was at her side, his face draining of colour as he looked down at their son. Louis's eyes were half open but unfocused, his breathing shallow and rapid, sweat dampening his hair and sticking to his flushed cheeks. "Louis, can you hear me?" William asked, gently shaking him, but his gaze slid past his father without recognition. Catherine's heart froze as she fumbled for her phone. Minutes blurred into frantic motion as protection officers appeared, their trained comm barely concealing their concern. Catherine wrapped Louis in a blanket while William lifted him into his arms, feeling his son's fragility. "We need to go now," he said, already moving toward the door. Staff cleared the hallways, activated emergency protocols, and made urgent calls, turning the palace into a flurry of controlled chaos. The drive to the hospital stretched endlessly, even though it lasted only minutes. Catherine cradled Louis against her chest in the back seat, whispering prayers and reassurances she wasn't sure he could hear. "Stay with us, darling. Stay with Mommy," she murmured against his fevered forehead. William gripped the seat in front of him, knuckles white, willing the car to move faster through streets that seemed to conspire against them. Each red light a cruel delay, each turn a fresh torment. A team of doctors and nurses surrounded them immediately, whisking Louis away on a gurney while firing questions at his parents. How long has he had the fever? Has he complained of pain? Any recent illnesses? Catherine tried to answer coherently, but her mind kept replaying the image of her son's glassy, unseeing eyes. William gripped her hand so tightly it hurt, anchoring them both as they followed their child down sterile corridors. The emergency room erupted into controlled chaos, monitors beeping urgently, nurses drawing blood from veins too small for such invasions. "The temperature is 40, someone announced, and Catherine felt her knees weaken, supported immediately by William as their son disappeared beneath the swarm of medical professionals. "We are doing everything we can," a doctor assured them, but the words offered no comfort against the terror consuming them. King Charles arrived within the hour, his face etched with worry despite attempts at composure, finding William and Catherine huddled together in a private waiting room, shattered beyond repair. "Any news?" he asked quietly, and William shook his head, speechless. Charles placed a hand on his son's shoulder, offering silent support that felt woefully inadequate. Hours passed in agonizing stillness, doctors appearing and disappearing to explain tests and possibilities, but offering no definitive answers. Blood work showed infection markers, but the source remained mysterious. Scans revealed nothing obvious, no explanation for the sudden collapse. "We need more time," the lead physician explained gently, urging patience they did not possess. Catherine wanted to scream at the unfairness of it, but instead nodded numbly and asked when she could see Louis. William paced the small room like a caged animal, mind racing through worst-case scenarios. What if they lost him? What if the illness proved untreatable? What if their bright, joyful boy never returned? At home, Charlotte and George waited under the care of trusted staff, repeatedly asking questions with no answers. "When is Louis coming back?" Charlotte cried for the 100th time, her small voice breaking. "Is he going to be okay?" George demanded, trying to sound brave but failing completely as staff exchanged helpless looks. Finally, William was allowed to see Louis. Entering the room, his heart shattered at the sight of his youngest son lying motionless beneath white sheets, surrounded by machines and tubes, his face still flushed despite medications. Sitting beside the bed, he took one small hand in his, whispering brokenly, "I am here, Louis. Papa is here, and I am not leaving you." Moments later, Catherine joined him, taking his other hand, and together they sat on either side of their son, connected through him, watching monitors trace every heartbeat and breath. Outside Louis's room, the world continued as though nothing catastrophic had occurred. But inside, time stood still as William and Catherine waited for answers that seemed determined never to come. "Catherine," known for her graceful composure, finally broke down. After nearly 12 hours of maintaining an exterior of strength, a nurse's words that they still had no diagnosis shattered her resolve. Her legs gave way, and she slid down the wall, crumpling onto the cold floor, sobs ripping from her throat with a violence that shocked everyone present. William dropped to his knees beside her, pulling her into his arms as her body shook uncontrollably. "I cannot do this again," she gasped between sobs. "I cannot watch another person I love fight for their life. I cannot, William. I just cannot." Her hands clutched at his shirt, desperately anchoring herself to something solid in a world rendered unbearably fragile. He held her tighter, his own tears falling silently, sharing every terror consuming her. Protection officers discreetly formed a barrier of privacy, their own faces reflecting the anguish of witnessing raw, unshielded pain. Trained to face physical threats, they were helpless against this invisible enemy attacking a 6-year-old boy. King Charles arrived to find his son and daughter-in-law in this devastated state. His own composure, usually unshakable after decades of royal training, wavered. He knelt beside them, placing a gentle hand on Catherine's shoulder. "You are not alone in this," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion rarely displayed. Catherine looked up at him, red-rimmed eyes revealing depths of suffering no parent should endure. "He is just a little boy," she whispered brokenly. "He should be playing with his toys and laughing with his siblings. Instead, he is lying in that bed, and nobody can tell us why." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks with each word, each syllable a visible effort. Charles felt his own eyes burn, the weight of their shared despair pressing down on him as he knelt beside them. William pulled slightly away from Catherine, running both hands through his hair in a gesture of utter helplessness. "I'm supposed to protect my children," he said, his voice cracking with anguish. "That is my job as their father, to keep them safe from harm. But how do I fight something the doctors cannot even name? How do I protect him from this?" He looked at his father with a desperation that stripped away every layer of royal dignity, leaving only a terrified parent facing his worst nightmare. Charles had no answers, no words to ease this particular torment. He had endured countless hardships and weathered storms in his long life, but watching his grandson suffer through a mysterious illness brought him face to face with a rare powerlessness. "We wait," Charles finally said, the words sounding inadequate even to him. "We stay strong for Louie, and we trust that the medical team will find answers." The hospital hallway became a small bubble of shared grief, separated from the bustling world beyond. Nurses walked past with averted eyes, allowing the family privacy in their darkest moment, while a young doctor paused nearby, struck by the raw emotion pouring from people the world often saw as untouchable. Titles and status meant nothing when a child's life hung in the balance. Catherine eventually pulled herself together, wiping her face with trembling hands. "I need to see him," she whispered. William helped her to her feet, both unsteady, leaning on each other for support, while Charles rose beside them, joints protesting but resolve firm. Together, they returned to Louis's room, a small family united by love and terror in equal measure. Louis lay as they had left him, chest rising and falling steadily despite the mystery ravaging his body. Catherine returned to his side, taking his hand and kissing his fevered knuckles. "Fight, my darling," she whispered. Finally, on the third day, the fever broke, leaving Louis exhausted but conscious and aware. Medical staff allowed themselves cautious relief, continuing their search for answers, while the crisis eased enough to allow quiet moments between parents and child. Catherine sat on the edge of the bed, William pulling his chair close, both watching their son with hearts still racing. Louis looked small against the white pillows, his face pale, but his eyes clear for the first time in what felt like forever. William reached out, gently brushing hair from his forehead. "You gave us quite a scare, little man," he said softly, trying to smile despite the lingering terror. Louis looked at his father with an expression so sorrowful it seemed impossible for such a young face to carry. "I am sorry, Papa," he whispered, barely audible. "I did not mean to make everyone worry about me." Catherine felt fresh tears sting her eyes at the genuine guilt in his voice. "Darling, you have nothing to apologize for," she assured him, taking his small hand between hers. "Being unwell is never your fault. We just want to understand what has been troubling you." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "You've been so sad for a long time even before you got sick. Can you tell us why?" Louis's lower lip trembled as he turned his gaze toward the window, where afternoon light filtered through the blinds. Silence stretched between them as William and Catherine waited, hardly daring to breathe. Finally, Louie spoke in a voice so soft they had to lean forward to hear him. "I thought you were going to replace me." The words hung in the air, heavy and devastating. William and Catherine exchanged bewildered glances before Catherine asked gently, "Replace you, sweetheart? What do you mean?" Louis turned back to them, tears spilling down his cheeks. "When you were sick, Mommy, I heard people talking. They said you needed lots of care and attention. I thought that meant you didn't have time for me anymore." William felt his heart fracture. "Louis, no," he began, but Louis continued, the words tumbling out now that the dam had broken. "And then I heard people talking about you having a new baby. And I knew for sure that once the baby arrives, nobody will want to play with me or read me stories. Everyone will forget about me because I won't be special." Catherine pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, horrified that such innocent misunderstandings had tormented her son for months. "Is that why you stopped eating and stopped playing with George and Charlotte?" she asked, voice breaking. Louis nodded miserably. "I thought if I stayed very quiet and didn't bother anyone, maybe you would still keep me. I tried so hard to be good and not cause trouble." William suddenly rose, unable to stay seated while hearing such heartbreaking confessions. He walked to the window, pressing his forehead against the cool glass as his shoulders shook with silent tears. That his precious son had believed himself unwanted replaceable cut deeper than any wound he had ever known. Catherine clung to Louis's hand, her own tears falling freely as she searched for words strong enough to undo months of silent suffering. "Look at me," Catherine said firmly, waiting until Louis's frightened eyes met hers. "You are not replaceable. You are not forgettable. You are our Louis, and nobody in this world could ever take your place in our hearts." She cupped his face gently, ensuring he saw the absolute truth in her expression. "When I was sick, I needed care, yes, but that never meant I loved you any less. Every day, even on my worst days, I thought about you and your brother and sister." Louis's face crumpled, and he asked desperately, "But what about the new baby? Babies need so much attention, and they cry all the time, and everyone thinks they are special. You will not have time for me anymore. I will just be in the way, and you will wish I was not around so much." William returned to the bedside, kneeling at eye level and taking Louis's other hand, completing a circle of connection between the three of them. "Listen carefully," he said, voice rough with emotion but steady with conviction. "A new baby does not replace the children we already have. Our love does not run out like water from a tap, it grows bigger to include everyone. Besides, no baby is coming, it's just gossip. You should focus only on what Mommy and Daddy tell you. When George was born, we loved him with our whole hearts. Then Charlotte came, and we did not love George any less. When you arrived, our hearts grew even bigger to hold all that love for 3 children. Catherine nodded, squeezing his hand. "You are our youngest prince, our Louis, who makes us laugh and asks the most wonderful questions. You pick dandelions for the gardeners and organize meetings for your stuffed animals. Nobody else can be those things, because nobody else is you." Louis looked between his parents, desperate to believe, but still uncertain. "Promise?" he whispered. "Promise I will still be important." William pulled him into a fierce embrace, careful of the medical equipment, but unable to maintain distance. "I promise with every part of my being. You will always be important. You will always be loved. You will always belong with us." The night after Louis's confession, William and Catherine sat together in the family room of their temporary accommodation near the hospital, unable to sleep despite exhaustion. Catherine stared at her hands, turning them over as though searching for answers written on her skin. "How did we miss this?" she whispered, voice hollow. "How did we not see that our own child was suffering so deeply right in front of us?" William had asked himself the same question for hours, replaying every interaction with Louis, realizing that in focusing so intently on his illness, he had failed to notice the story Louis had been building in his head about being replaced. "We should have pushed harder for answers," he said bitterly, standing to join Catherine at the window. "We should have insisted on understanding what was happening inside his mind instead of making assumptions." Catherine turned to him, seeing her own anguish mirrored in his expression. "We need to change everything about how we approach this," she said with intensity. "Not just with Louis, but with all 3 of them. We cannot assume we understand their fears. We need to ask, to listen, and to create a space where they feel safe telling us anything." Late into the night, they discussed how to rebuild Louis's sense of security without overwhelming him with attention that might feel false or temporary. "He needs consistency," William observed, thinking through their complicated schedules, realizing that daily proof of care mattered more than grand gestures. Catherine nodded, already reorganizing priorities, that suddenly seemed far less important. The following morning, they met with child psychologists recommended by the hospital staff, who listened carefully to the full story, nodding thoughtfully with understanding that offered some comfort. One psychologist explained gently, "Children Lewis's age often struggle with abstract concepts like unconditional love. They interpret events very literally and rarely ask for clarification when frightened. What he needs now is patient rebuilding of trust and security." William and Catherine absorbed every suggestion and strategy offered for helping their son heal from months of self-imposed isolation. They learned the importance of validating his feelings, preventing the children from overhearing public gossip, and creating a safe environment where honest communication could flourish. The information felt simultaneously overwhelming and desperately necessary. Catherine immediately cancelled all non-essential public commitments, announcing firmly to her secretary, "My priority is being present for my children, particularly Louie. He needs to see through consistent action that what we tell him is true." William made similar changes to his schedule, ensuring he could be available whenever Louis needed him, refusing to entertain any protests about royal responsibilities. They developed new family rituals to reinforce each child's individual importance, including non-negotiable one-on-one time and activities tailored to Louis's interests, allowing him to recover at his own pace. "We let him set the pace," Catherine reminded William. "We follow his lead while showing him we are always there." The guilt settled into their bones like a permanent ache, but alongside it grew a fierce determination to become the parents their children needed, attentive, asking questions, truly listening, and recognizing that small hearts can carry burdens too heavy for their size. King Charles played a critical role in Louis's recovery, arriving each morning at the hospital with quiet determination and steady reassurance. On the fourth day, he found William alone in the corridor and learned of Louis's fear of being replaced. "You could not have known," Charles said gently. "Children hide their deepest fears remarkably well." William admitted moments of regret, creating a small bond of shared understanding between father and son. Later, Charles observed Catherine reading to a half-asleep Louis and quietly encouraged her, reminding her that her fight for life did not make her neglectful. Understanding the balance between royal duty and family crisis, he took over several of William and Catherine's scheduled commitments, insisting that their son's needs come first. When Louis was ready for visitors, Charles brought simple, thoughtful gifts: a book about elephants, a smooth stone from the palace gardens, and a drawing supposedly made by one of the corgis, gestures that spoke louder than grand proclamations. He spent quiet time alone with Louis, explaining gently that babies add to families rather than replace children, sharing stories from William and Harry's births, and reassuring him that his place in his parents' hearts remained secure. Over the following days, change came gradually, like flowers opening after a long winter. Louis's appetite returned. He played with George and Charlotte, and even made the nurses laugh with a joke. Each tiny moment was a relief to his parents, who watched their son slowly reclaim his joy. One evening, Louis looked up at William, eyes bright once more. "Papa, can we read the elephant book Grandpa brought?" William felt tears prick his eyes. He nodded and settled beside his son, reading aloud as Louis snuggled against him with the relaxed trust of a child who finally believed he was safe and loved. The crisis had passed, leaving scars but also profound lessons about listening, understanding, and the fragile hearts that children carry.